Hello, my name is Pastor Keion Henderson, and I give leadership to the LightHouse Church right here in Houston, Texas. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Keion's Corner. I want to thank you for allowing me in your corner. You know, I often say everybody needs somebody in their corner, and I'm so glad that you've allowed me to be in yours. I am here at the Lone Star Flight Museum here in Houston, and I have a phenomenal guest that's going to show you how to take flight, to get off of the ground, go to the next dimension of your life, and to soar with the eagles. This young man grew up in a house with 4 sisters, a mother who was single, raised them, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of resources, grew up in a neighborhood that was tough, and now he is the first person of his kind and color to do something that has never been done before, and he's done it right here in Houston, Texas, and he's going to sit down with me to show you how to get to the next dimension of your life. Hello, everybody. My name is Pastor Keion Henderson, and I give leadership to the LightHouse Church right here in Houston, Texas. And welcome to another episode of Keion's Corner. We have a phenomenal show for you today with a phenomenal guest, and I believe you're going to learn a lot about this young man today. I was so impressed when I met him today, and we've got an array of information. You're going to learn some historical things. You're going to learn some heart-warming things, and there is even a little bit of a carrot, if you will, for your young people. So if you have a child in the house right now, if you got one in the room, go get them right now and bring them to the television and have some quality time with them, because they are also a part of this segment. We are here in Houston, Texas at the Lone Star Museum, where we have all kinds of airplanes and flying apparatuses that surround us, and we're so grateful to be here today. And I've got an amazing guest, Mr. Kenneth Morris, who's sitting next to me to my left, and he is a phenomenal man, a phenomenal talent, and has done something in the Houston area. Well, let me check that, in the globe, if you will, especially here in the United States, that has never been done before. So, Kenneth, I want to welcome you to the show.
My pleasure.
It's so good to have you. Well, listen, we've got people who are watching us, and they don't know you possibly, and today's my first time meeting you, but they should know you, because I often say that there's always somebody backstage that's making sure that what's happening on stage reaches the end user. So if you don't mind, just tell them a little bit about who you are and why you're so significant here in the Houston area.
Okay, well, like I say, thank you. I can't even begin to let you know how much I appreciate this opportunity. And to say the least, I feel blessed to have the role that I have now. I am from Houston. I'm a native Houstonian, and I can relate to the youth today. Like, again, I was one of those youth who had a rough upbringing from the Fifth Ward area, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it was tough, to say the least.
So how old are you?
I'm 38.
38,
38.
okay.
I say it proud. I look a lot younger, but I'm 38.
So you're born in 79.
79.
I was born in 81.
All right, there you go. So yeah, I'm 38, but I'm the oldest. I have 4 younger sisters. I don't have any brothers, so a lot of responsibility was on me early on in life. So I grew up, my grandmother raised me, and we didn't have much, but what we had I was very appreciative of, you know, and I cannot thank her enough. And what I did learn early in life was, you know, the materialistic things that a lot of people covet, you didn't really need those things to find happiness. And so growing up, I wasn't exposed to aviation. I wasn't exposed to anybody really doing a lot of positive things. And my career path really was basketball, prison, or jail,
wow,
or something along those lines. And unfortunately, a lot of my friends succumbed to that, but I didn't. You know, I was blessed to be able to have some positive options after leaving high school, and I chose to go to the military. I didn't have any basketball or scholarships or anything like that. Actually, that was my only option, because I was making some bad decisions in high school. So when I speak to people, I'm very honest about my upbringing and the mistakes I made, because I want people to learn from those. The position I'm in now, it didn't come easily. You know, I actually worked for about 4 years and didn't get paid a dime, exposing inner city youth to aviation.
So you mentioned about the position, and I want them to know exactly what that is. Our backgrounds are similar. I have 3 sisters, and I had a brother on my father's side, but we didn't live together. I had a few options: basketball, prison, or jail. I chose basketball. So our similarities there, Gary, Indiana, rough upbringing, not a lot of substance and all of that. And so I think that it is the tough times that make tough people. The Bible says that we should not despise small beginnings. And I'm so grateful that that we've got a person here, and myself as well, that we've started small, and God has done great things with us. And maybe that's a source of encouragement for you, that perhaps you're wondering, I don't have much, and I don't come from much. But God says don't despise small beginnings, because if it were not for a small acorn, there wouldn't be a big oak tree. And sometimes God starts a thing small. But you mentioned position. I don't want you to skate over position like it's
Yes, sir.
nothing. It's not
Yes,
like
sir.
a point guard on the basketball team,
Yes,
or
sir.
it's not like tell us what that position is and why it is so significant.
Okay, so my role now, my current role I'm serving is Director of Education and Outreach for the Lone Star Flight Museum. We are basically a brand new facility here in Houston, absolute phenomenal facility. The mission is really inspiring and engaging the young youth and teaching them not only about what they see in front of them, but all the possibilities and the opportunities of futures and promise and so forth that they can be exposed to. But again, if they don't have anybody look like them, who's going to come in and show them that way, be that positive mentor, the likelihood of them making out of their situation is pretty bleak. So as the Director of Education, the museum has been around for about 20 years. I'm the first African American or minority hired since the beginning of the museum. And my role as Director of Education, I'm over the safety, I'm over the educational aspect of what the students learn. We have 1.2 million students in my region that I positively engage.
And I wanted you guys to hear that. Being the first African American, it wasn't about the color of his skin that I wanted you to pay attention to. What I wanted you to know is that he was a minority, and that could be a Hispanic, that could be somebody of a different descent, and whatever you are, I want you to know that you can win from a minority position. We're in this building right now, and I've had an opportunity to tour it, and we've got planes all over the place. And one of the things that I asked Mr. Keion was, why are these plates underneath the planes? And he said to me, he says, all of our planes are still operable. Now that's amazing, because the floor is clean, they look like they're positioned, they look like they're statues, or they look like something that we should just admire. And here they are, pristine condition, they're washed, they're painted, and yet the pans are still underneath them because they're still in operable condition. And I wanted to say to somebody today, maybe perhaps you feel that you've been put on the shelf, and perhaps you've been put up and somebody's forgotten about you, but I don't want you to lose your operating skills. I want you to still maintain the ability to operate no matter what state you're in. You know, Paul said, I've learned to be content no matter what state I'm in. I want you to learn to be operable no matter what state you're in, whether you're in the warehouse, whether you're in the storehouse, whether you're in the church, whether you're in the choir, whether you are an usher or perhaps unemployed. I want you to still remain in operable condition. And I'm so honored to be sitting next to you with such a great testimony, 1.2 million students, and hopefully those of you all who are watching, you may not even know that one of that 1.2 million may be somebody you know. Maybe it's a nephew, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a son. And so we, and I say we, all of those who are watching and myself included, we thank you for not only your service to our country, but also for your service to our community. But I want to dive a little deeper and perhaps ask some questions that will allow the people at home to know a little more about you. You're here today because there is something about you that will help somebody else to discover something about them. I want you to stay tuned. I want you to pay attention. Get all of the noise out. Get all of the noise out. Put your cell phone down right now. I know we're glued to those things, but just put it down right now. Perhaps you've got some other distractions. I want you to focus solely on this interview with myself and Ken here, so that way you can find the same track in your life, this common thread that God will bind the three of us together. And I say the three of us because I'm talking directly to you. Perhaps there are thousands, maybe even millions watching right now. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm talking specifically to you. And so Ken and I are going to have this conversation, and so hopefully we'll say something that'll help you with the next level of your life. My first question for you is this: how and when did you realize that you wanted to be a pilot?
You know, my story is not typical. So it wasn't until I was 18 years old that I even got on an airplane. So you hear pilots say, I knew at the age of 5. I knew when I was born I was going to fly. Those were not my dreams. Those were not even options or real, that was not something I even considered. As a matter of fact, growing up, I was terrified of heights. I was terrified of heights because everybody who lived in my neighborhood told me if I got on an airplane, I was going to crash and burn and die, and that'll be the end of it. I got back from the Navy, found out none of them even been on an airplane before.
So you got advice from people who had never been in the position.
So I'm listening to people who listen to other people, and had I listened to them, I wouldn't be where I am now. So once I started flying, the first time going on any aircraft, I was headed to boot camp for the Navy. So once I got up there, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm thinking it's going to be like the movies, and it was nothing like that. So I immediately got over my fear of flying. So I got into aviation because I basically passed the test to go to the Navy. I scored pretty high on the test, but it wasn't indicative of my high school scores. My high school scores, I was barely making it. My GPA was 2.1. I rarely say that publicly, but that was my GPA. I can live in that truth. Once I scored and studied really hard to get in this Navy, I scored really high. They thought I cheated on the test.
Wow.
They made me retake the test, and I scored higher the second time.
Wow.
So when I scored higher the second time, they had a list of jobs that I qualified for. I could have been a cook, I could have been a mechanic, operations specialist, IT, and they had another piece of paper sitting off to the side. It was an aviation job. So just being inquisitive, I asked, well, what is that paper for? They said, well, this is a flying job. It involves looking for submarines, a lot of swimming, and flying aircraft. 90% of the people that try it, they flunk out. I'd advise you to go be a cook. Okay, well, I'm going to take that job, and the rest is history. So that's how I got into aviation. Again, nobody else in my family's in aviation. Only one other person who came many years before me was in the military, but I'm blessed, I'm honored, and again, I think the experiences I've had, being able to overcome that, it's been transformative to say the least.
You just set my soul on fire, and I hope those of you all at home are listening, because what he's basically saying is that if you're going to be an eagle, you cannot take your flight itinerary from a chicken. If you're going to be a bird that flies, you cannot get advice from people on the ground. I often say this, if you're following somebody who's going nowhere, you're going to get there 1 second after them. Your story actually reminds me of little young David, who's out in the field, who by way of invitation, maybe nobody explicitly told him he wasn't good enough, but by way of invitation, he was told that he wasn't good enough because his father had all of his other sons there to be picked as the next king, and here the next king is left out in the field, attending sheep. Had David listened to his father's invitation, he never would have become king. But something he knew inside of him, that God had something for him that he didn't have for anybody else. And oftentimes, when God has something for you that he doesn't have for somebody else, it doesn't look like it. It doesn't feel like it. And then you get into a room where somebody has 5 options, and they already pick for you and tell you, your option is down there. You ought to pick something down there. Stay away from that option, because 90% of the people who choose that option, they don't succeed. And I come to tell somebody who's watching right now, guess what? You're in the 10%. You are in the 10%. You are the 1 out of the 10 that will go and find the opportunity and will be able to do what other people will not be able to do. You are one of the ones who will be able to overcome the obstacles, and you're one of the ones. It's like the Bible talks about the leper, where there were 10 and only a couple came back. You're the one. You're the one, and I want you to believe that. I want you to infuse yourself with faith and believe that you are the one, and God picked you. And guess what? Favor ain't fair. Now, I know that's not good English, but favor ain't fair. You didn't tell God to pick you. There was nothing you did. You didn't go around the neighborhood saying, I'm going to be a pilot. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the first African-American to do this. It just is. And I just want to encourage you. It's not your fault. You just are. What a great testimony about how you came over the odds and how you picked something that others told you not to pick. And my greatest takeaway from that is you did better the second time around, signifying that you didn't cheat.
Exactly.
That you actually did it authentically. What an amazing testimony. After you realized you wanted to be a pilot, what steps did you take? Because somebody may say, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do next.
The very first thing I did was I surrounded myself with other pilots. I had a bunch of friends who were doing the exact opposite.
So stay right there. Let's not move off of that. So you're telling me that one of the ways I can achieve my dream, or one of the things that is keeping me from achieving my dream, are you telling me that can be who I surround myself with?
Absolutely. 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 Absol 100%.
Okay, elaborate more on that.
So basically, I had a choice. Went to summer camp, basketball camp, and so forth. I'm 5'10". I wasn't going to the NBA. That wasn't a realistic option for me, you know. So, but I know with the proper mentorship and the proper positive environments, I was around people that were being successful in aviation. So if I failed a test or something like that, because I failed a test. That's not unheard of. Nothing was perfect, but they worked with me. They helped me study and helped me get better. So the people that I surrounded myself with changed everything. So the mentors and it wasn't all males. It wasn't all black people. It was Hispanics. It was females. It was Caucasians. It didn't really matter. My purpose was to really achieve a certain level, and the only way I was going to do that was, I love playing basketball, but I had to decide whether I was going to study this aviation or was I going to go play basketball. And I chose, to study the aviation, and it paid off in the long run.
So you just brought up something that really snares my attention. The Bible talks about how can two walk together unless they agree. He said in order to be successful, he surrounded himself with other pilots, other people who agreed with his purpose, other people who agreed with his path. We are in this hangar right now. Guess what? There are airplanes everywhere, but there are no tanks in here because they don't agree. There are no boats in here because they don't agree. The walls are gray and the floors are gray. Why? Because they agree. You've got to make sure that you are in an agreeable environment, that you're around people who do what you do. Don't be a plane and take your advice from a boat. And don't be a tank and take your advice from a plane. Because although each one of them are good in their own environment, they are not good in the environment that you'll call. How can two walk together unless they agree? So the advice from Mr. Keion and from myself is for you to find those people who are agreeable with your purpose. Make sure that if you have an altitude opportunity, that you are surrounded with people who have altitude mentality. Because if you are going higher and you're talking to people who are going down, then one of you all will make the decision for the other. So make sure that you are surrounded by people who are going in the same direction, who have the same goals. And I think that it's amazing that you had enough courage, yet even enough sense, if you will, to find people who were savvy in the areas of your destiny and to find other pilots. What good would have been for him to be a pilot and go find a basketball player? You can't dribble a plane. What would have happened if you said, I'm going to be a pilot, but I'm going to go find an NFL player to be a mentor? And then what good would that have been? I'm a product right now of the same thing. When I became a pastor, the first thing I did is I went and found other pastors to help me. But then I recognized that I was more than a pastor. I was also a businessman. And so if I went and got pastors who were just pastors, then I would have never been able to take flight. So I had to go find other pastors who were businessmen so that they could help me to become the full weight of what God wanted me to be. Man, you're so interesting. I'm just so glad to be sitting next to you. You've got so much sense. Who raised you, by the way?
My grandmother. I have a really solid family structure. Like I said, my sisters, my aunts. I love my family. Family is everything to me. So I'm very, very appreciative. And again, I have extended family and cousins, maternal and paternal. So again, my family's a really important aspect of my life.
Awesome. Let me ask you this. How many different countries have you been to?
32.
32 different countries. Just off the top of your head, just name something.
I've been to
Let's play
Pakistan.
A game. I want you to name a country, and I'm going to say if I've been there or not.
Okay.
You say the country, name all of them you can, and I'll say been there or I've never been there.
All right. Australia.
Been there.
Okay. Japan.
Never.
Thailand.
Never.
Bahrain.
Never heard of it.
Qatar.
I've been on the airplane, but not the country. Well, I wanted to go to the military. I really did, but I was my mother's only son and my feet were flat.
There you go.
So I didn't think God wanted me to go. Otherwise, he would have gave my mother another son and gave me an arch in my foot. So
there you go.
Help everybody at home and help me understand it because we all want to know.
Okay.
What happens when our flights are delayed? Tell us, because we want to know. We need to know why we are told that the flight is going to leave at 3:55 and it ends up leaving at. And the delays always comes in three. It's like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You get the first delay, which followed by another delay, and then they tell us to switch our gates. Tell us what's all behind those delays.
Well, it's so many variables when you're dealing with commercial aviation. So, again, I flew in the military. With flying in the military, very seldom are you going to be delayed. They want you to leave early, you know. So when you're flying commercial, though, again, you could have other aircraft in the pattern. If you have a lot of aircraft coming in, say Houston Intercontinental, our airport here, Hobby, we have a lot of planes coming in. Probably every 15 seconds we have planes coming in and landing, especially on a busy day. If for whatever reason an aircraft that's not on their radar, an air traffic control comes in and breaks up the pattern, sometimes they'll have you flying around in circles or whatever the case may be. That's going to delay your time getting to the gate.
Wow. So I asked a question very, very precisely, and I asked the question with a purpose, because some of you have been asking God and questioning God, why am I delayed? You've been asking God, why haven't I arrived? Well, you know, I wanted to have a child at 25. God, why don't I have one? I thought I was going to be married by 27. Why am I not married? I thought I would be in a career place that I've never been in by this time or that time, and why is there a delay? Perhaps it could be any one of those reasons. Perhaps God doesn't let you land because there are other people landing at the same time. And perhaps God has delayed your landing to make sure that you don't collide with something that's going on the same course. Perhaps there is something that has flown into your spiritual engine that has caused you trouble, and that landing right now would be a problem. Or perhaps you're in a holding pattern where God has you going around in circles. You know, the Bible says, they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and they shall not faint. You know, when I tell people about waiting, they often think about this kind of waiting. You know, they look at their watch and they're like, I'm just waiting on God. I want you to get a different imagery in your mind. I want you to get the imagery of the waiter at your favorite restaurant that has a towel adorned over his arm, and he is called your waiter. See, he's there to serve you. So when the Bible says they that wait on the Lord, they're not actually talking about those who chronologically wait on the Lord, those who serve the Lord while they wait. And I don't know what you're waiting on right now, but if you're just waiting, you are wasting valuable opportunity, experience, and time. I want you to serve the Lord with gladness even while you're waiting. And I want you to do what Ken said. He says, I'm going to set the bar so high that the guy who comes after me is going to have to work hard. I say it this way, Ken. I'm going to run so hard that if I don't win first place, I'm going to make sure the guy in front of me breaks the record. That you've got to run so hard that you push the people in front of you, that they go harder. And I know you can do it. I know you can do it. Perhaps this show is going to be the difference between life and death for someone. Perhaps these moments that myself and my brother Ken are spending together is going to be the well of water where you'll be able to draw something out, and that you'll be able to have enough nourishment to go to the next level. And perhaps these few moments together is all you needed to know that you are not meant for the ground, that you're meant to soar, that you're meant to go to the next level, and that exposure is perhaps the only thing between you and your next dimension. You know, flying is often broken down into dimensions, because one thing I do know is that every plane gets to a cruising altitude. It gets to a place where everybody can relax, take off the seatbelts, go about the cockpit, and go about your business and do what it is that you're going to do. But let me tell you something. That soon comes to an end, because when it's time to land, everybody's got to brace themselves. Everybody's got to get back in your seat. I don't know what position you are in. Maybe you're in the takeoff phase. Maybe you're in the cruising phase. Maybe you're in the descension phase. But whatever you are and wherever you are, I want you to know that you are meant to fly. Ken, what a phenomenal time it has been sitting and talking with you. Your story has encouraged me, and I know it has encouraged many of you. Thank you for showing us how to get off of the ground in spite of the odds. And thank you for showing us that sometimes our success is in the pathway where other people don't want to go. And that just because we haven't done something, that doesn't mean that there are no opportunities. It just means that perhaps we haven't gone in the right direction. I want you to use your life, your story, your experience to look in that camera and to encourage somebody who's watching. Let them know that they can start off on the ground, and they can start off poor, and they can start off in all of these kind of diverse circumstances and can still become number one in their field or do something that nobody they know has ever done before.
Okay. Again, like I said, I really appreciate this opportunity, to say the least, first and foremost. I really, for me personally, I literally think about this every day. I've experienced homelessness. I've experienced drugs, dividing families, I've experienced violence and so forth, things that a lot of our youth are going through, and young adults as well. Again, people always tell you, you can do anything, believe in yourself, and so forth. And I'm a firm believer that not only that you can do those things and accomplish whatever you like, but just the company that you keep, keep a positive mindset and just don't quit. Giving up, that is just the absolute last option, if an option ever. If there's something that you enjoy doing, find a way to do that every day. Find a way to help somebody that's in need. And for me, it was all about giving back. I love helping the youth. I love exposing them to different positive options. And anyone will tell you that I'll give my last if it means helping somebody else, because I know how to go back and get it again. So again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that it helps somebody. And if not, I'm available.
It was definitely a pleasure, Mr. Keion, and I am so honored to meet you. We salute you from your country, from us fellow country members. We salute you for your service, and we thank you for, we believe that this is the home of the free because of the brave.
Yes, sir.
I hope you had as much fun today as I did. I want to thank my guest, Mr. Kenneth Morris. I want to thank all of you all for watching. I want to thank you that you heard our plea and that you heard our cry. And I hope that something was said today that will invigorate you to take flight, get off the ground, and get to the next level. We can continue the conversation if you will follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Pastor Keion. You can also go to my website, KeionHenderson.com. And if you want to do something personal, I want to send you a clarion call, an invitation to come to our singles conference here in Houston at our church entitled The Well Experience. God met a woman at the well. She had 5 mistakes, but the one she was with was God's way of entering to her life. This well experience is our opportunity to come together so that the Master can meet us at whatever place we are in. I love you. God bless you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm currently in a flight simulator being trained by a professional. There are 3 things that I learned now that I think will help you in your life. First of all, I had to learn how to take off. Second thing, all I had to do was control the aircraft with a left and a right-hand turn. But let me tell you what was most difficult. Landing was the hardest. I had to pass up my target 3 times in order to land once. I didn't force a landing, which didn't put my life in jeopardy. I passed it up, I made a turn, and I came back. The landing wasn't perfect, but I lived to tell the story. And whoever you are, I want you to know that sometimes you may have to pass up your goal. Sometimes you may have to take another turn and take another shot at it. But that patience will ensure that you don't self-destruct and give you an opportunity to live to fight another day.